If I look incredibly zoned out for this video, I promise I'm not on any kind of drug. Well, technically, I mean, you know, I just took Benadryl about like a few hours ago, so I'm still feeling the effects of the grogginess. So if I look like I'm kind of out of it and just struggling to exist, that's why. Allergic reaction to something. I have no idea what it was, but here I am, just allergic to everything. What's going on, my pretty pandas? It's your huggable hipster here, and welcome back to another game review. Today's review is going to be on Red Dead Redemption 2, one of my now favorite games. I love it so much. You're gonna hear my likes, you're gonna hear my dislikes, you're gonna hear my loves, you're gonna hear my hates, you're gonna hear it all, honey. So the Wild West has never looked so good, and here is why. In a world filled with gunslingers, tobacco spitters, and outlaws, there's a group that's made a plan for themselves to make a mark, then leave without a trace to follow them. Dutch and the gang of misfits, gentlemen, and murderers manipulate their way through life and leave no stone unturned. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a story of men, women, and children who fight their way through hell and back to say, yeah, we did it, we made it, we may have killed a couple of folk on the way here, but we made it. Now, Red Dead Redemption 2 is the prequel to the first game, Red Dead Redemption. Now, as a person whose Xbox list contains mostly horror titles, I had trepidations about this game. Will it be boring? Will I not like it? Will I have to admit to my audience that I found it tiresome and tedious and just a bore? Well, none of that happened, thank goodness, but it was a thought in the back of my head. Throughout my time playing this game, I had a sense of awe in just not just the developmental constructs of the game, but the storyline itself was... I was surprised. I was surprised at how well it was executed for an open world format. When this game was gifted to me on Xbox, thank you by the way to the person who gifted it to me, very, very, very grateful. I was very hesitant, and it wasn't because I didn't want to play the game, it's just because normally I don't accept presents and gifts from my subscribers unless you're a Patreon, then you're signing up for that out of your own free will, so I can't necessarily do anything about it. But whether it be a donation of a game, monetary, whatever it may be, just know that I'm extremely, incredibly grateful. And because of the donation, I ended up finding a game that I really loved, so that's an A+ in my book. Now, there's a lot that I really loved, I hated, I was annoyed by, that I was bored by, and just really, I will say it again, downright annoyed by. But the way the universe in this game, well, this technical universe in the game is created, I was skeptical in thought about how an open world in the form of a Wild West game could even really work. When thinking of how an open world Wild West game might actually work, there's so many technical things that have to be brought up. How will the storyline flow from the first game to the second game? Because when doing a prequel, you have to set up the timeline effortlessly so that it flows straight into the first game. Then you also have to think of how would an open world help the game? Will it help it? Will it hinder it? Those are different things you have to think of as well. Is there an open world that is needed for this, or could it be done just as a third person, just as a regular shooter style game? How will you make every character coherent? Even the NPCs. The NPCs have dialogue with you that you need to keep coherent with the storyline. It's all very nitty-gritty details that have to be brought into accountability before you even think about, oh well, I want to do a prequel and everything. But this game does it effortlessly. There's a lot to take into consideration, and I feel like they hit the nail on the head with almost every aspect of the game. And I say almost because of two main reasons. One, there was way too much horse riding. I've never seen so much horse riding in a game my entire life. I was actually sitting there silent during gameplay when I was recording it, because there would be 2 to 4 minutes per adventure that you would go on, per mission, that it would just be horse riding. Nothing but horse riding. I mean, in the editing alone, I would cut out like 2 to maybe like 5 minutes of the max of riding around on horseback, and like, oh, that's why the episode is shorter now. Now, you would think that the meditative experience of horse riding would make the gameplay more enjoyable. It was just unneeded, and I feel like they could have maybe shortened it down a little bit. So, you know, they really took the concept open world very seriously. Now, the other thing that I found unnecessary, unneeded, just not even part of what I would think the story would include, would be the section in Guam. Like when they get lost from the shipwreck and everything like that, and then they get captured, and then they have to fight a bunch of people. That entire section is completely unnecessary. Cut that out, not part of the story. I feel like you don't need to enhance the game's length, which is what I think they were doing in the long run. They were trying to make the game longer so they could have like the open world be more adventurous and everything. To an extent, I understand why they added this section, but at the same time, completely pointless part of the story. I mean, in this section, they were basically acting like Gilligan's Island was a Wild West parody. It was really unnecessary. Like I said, the entire section, unnecessary. I felt like they were dragging it out. It was idiotic to even put it in. If it pertains to the story, please let me know down in the comments below, because I would love to know how the section Guam really pertains to anything. And honestly, I never thought I would love a non-horror game as much as I do this one and Ori and the Blind Forest. Now, this game made me laugh so hard that my sides hurt. It made me cry with the characters. It made me care for the characters. It made me hate a lot of the characters. Micah, what's going on there, Black Lung? Oh, nothing, you know, just dying from tuberculosis. The game, I know I said it, but it made me cry for those who lost their dignity to the struggle of finding themselves. Like, it's just one of those games that it made me love American history more than I already did, because they put a lot from the Wild West actual history. Like, they put a lot of its history into this game. That way you could actually see what it was like for people. And you know, this is like a stretch saying what it was like for people because this is a video game, but you actually saw some of the history and some of the things that actually happened in the era of the Wild West. Now, the game encapsulates something that really no other game does: humanity. And you can see it partially with the evil within, to some extent with Resident Evil. This really encapsulates the good, the bad, the ugly, the sexy, the dangerous. It just encapsulates everything of the spectrum of human emotion and humanity as far as a game can do. It made me want to know these characters in real life. It made the journey exciting and the manipulation they went through tangible. Now, through the story of the Wild Wests, we hear so many different folklores and tales and different life situations that made the game really stand out, in my opinion. Especially the story that they added to this game, the Saint-Denis Vampire. Now, in New Orleans, which I'm guessing they were in modern day New Orleans. From, you know, that's where Interview with the Vampire took place. That's where Anne Rice got most of her inspiration, was from the vampire folklore that was in New Orleans. The stories of vampires were endless and fruitful in that time, and so adding this to the game as a part of kind of, I don't know, living out the history, so to speak, was a really cool add, and I'm really glad that they did it. Of the world that they lived in, but the lore in which they lived a part of was really cool, and I feel like it made the game a little more well-rounded. There's a lot more that I could dive into, and there's a lot more that could be discussed on each aspect of the game. Hell, there are creatures called the Night Folk, there's the KKK, there's just so many people. There's like Westboro Baptist Church member, not the Westboro Baptist Church itself, but it's like people who have like cults and churches along those lines in this game. So I feel like there's so much that could be written about each segment of how the game is constructed. Not just from a developmental side, but from a story standpoint as well. Also, I want to point out, from a developmental side, did you guys notice how different the faces look and how different the men look from the women? Normally, in a lot of video games, they could pass pretty much looking the same, but in this, it's very distinctive. I could tell each character apart, and that was one of my favorite things about it. Like I said, there's a lot more that could be discussed with this game, but today the vague pen writes as it leaves no curious mind to rest. I would definitely recommend this game in a heartbeat. It's very long, so if you're not accustomed to very massive open world games, take a few weeks and just try to get through it, because it's long. But if you guys want me to write more articles actually about this game and about the different kinds of things that are in this game, please let me know down in the comments below. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. But that's it for today's video. If you guys like my face and what I do, please be sure to subscribe and hit the bell down below, because I make videos every weekday and a podcast every Saturday. Stay catchy and nerdy, you guys. And I will talk to you all in tomorrow's video, which, I'm excited about. Peace.